The depth chart for this week has been released, and I think this guy deserves more playing time.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a Thursday edition of Locked On SMU, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Thanks for sticking with us this week as we continue to count you down to SMU and Stanford. Our show today is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if the bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So download the FanDuel app today. Coming up on the show today, could the secondary actually get even better? And I'm going to tell you why. Coach Lashlee said something very interesting in the lead up to this game that I think could lead to the secondary playing even better. Also, stomp them out. Stomp them out. I'll tell you why at the end of the show. But first, let's start with this. The depth chart was released earlier today, and I'll get to who I think deserves more playing time in just a second. But, you know, some of the takeaways from this depth chart, because this depth chart was intriguing. This depth chart release was really, really intriguing to me. On offense, not a whole lot of surprises until you get to who the number 2 running back is. It's Jermichael Green. Jermichael Green is the number 2 running back, not Derek McFall, not Chris Johnson Jr. And I had to do a double take when I first saw this. When I first saw this, I was like, wait, what now? What now? Jermichael Green, not Derek McFall. Jermichael Green on the season, 18 carries for 55 yards, 3.1 yards per carry. But he has started to ramp up in terms of his usage. Now, that he was a freshman that was a little bit banged up at the beginning of the year, the end of fall camp, whatnot. So that's no surprise in and of itself. But to me, he hasn't looked all that effective, especially more effective than Chris Johnson Jr. And it would interest me to see if Chris Johnson is falling out of favor with the SMU staff. I wonder if that has something to do with it. Again, this is something I'm just hypothesizing because just based off of production so far, Chris Johnson Jr. is averaging 5.7 yards per carry and 13.3 yards per catch. As a matter of fact, the 13.3 yards per catch places him really third on the team in terms of yards per catch behind Jalen Cooper and Romello Brinson. So something's not adding up here. And I don't know what that is, but the fact that Chris Johnson saw very limited usage against Syracuse and now is third on the depth chart behind the true freshman Green, that's a little that's a little interesting to me. I think that stands out. So there's that. Andrew Chambly is the starting left tackle for the second year in a row. Again, another guy who had been banged up. Savion Byrd wasn't all that fantastic. I think we can all agree on that. He wasn't all that fantastic. So I have no problem with it seeming like Andrew Chambly is going to be the starting left tackle going forward. I got no issue with that because you could certainly do better than Savion Byrd. Was he horrible? No. Was he good? Depends on your interpretation of the word good, which generally, if that's how you answer that question, not really a good thing. Also, Derek McFall is listed as a wide receiver now. And this is probably one you could have seen coming. Chris Johnson Jr. and TJ Harden were the workhorses at the beginning of the year. It just didn't seem like it was coming together for McFall as a running back, but he's got a skill set that could lend to him being used well as a slot receiver. Now, he is listed at second, really third, at that position, that wide receiver tight end position occupied by RJ Maryland or Yamir Knight, and then you get to Derek McFall. So essentially he's third in that position. Now to the defensive side. The secondary pretty much stays the same. Speedy Nettles, Jalen Davis Robinson, and then Deuce Harmon at nickel. Speedy and Smoke are your corners. Wakobe and Moses are your safeties. They seem like they found some continuity there. More on the secondary in the next segment. Brandon Booker is listed as the starting middle linebacker. And this is the dude I think deserves more playing time. When I saw this, I was like, I actually like this. I actually like this. The true sophomore being listed as a starter at middle linebacker. And all Brandon Booker has done this year, I don't know if any of you guys are aware of this. Brandon Booker is third on the team in tackles. 29 total tackles. Half a sack on the year. And he has stepped up and made plays while Kilgore and Barker have missed time. And Zakai Barker on his comeback just wasn't that inspiring. He hasn't been all that great this year. And Brandon Booker, to me, especially when it comes to playing downhill. Now, coverage, it'll remain to see how much of a work in progress he's going to be. But in terms of playing downhill and stopping the run, keep this in mind. SMU didn't have some precipitous drop-off when Kilgore and Barker were out of the lineup as it pertained to stopping the run, at least to the naked eye test. So I like the idea of throwing Brandon Booker back there, and I think he deserves it. Again, third on the team in tackles as a rotational linebacker is nothing to sneeze at. He's got good size, 6'1", 225 pounds, and seems to fly around. Now, can he be more disciplined, with his eyes as a guy? And this is what you worry about with a guy that loves to play fast downhill, is can he be disciplined with his eyes, and can he make sure that he's making the right reads? Again, more snaps are going to come, and that will work itself out. But I have loved what I've seen from him. I really, really have. When I watch SMU on defense, to me, he's kind of stood out. And he's kind of stood out in two ways. Number one, because he's making plays. He's everywhere around the ball. And we talked about Rhett Lashlee's comments from the other day about how they got back to swarming the ball. And Brandon Booker's a part of that. But point number two, as to how he stood out to me because he's played more snaps than a rotational linebacker does. And to me, I was starting to become under the impression that this might be more than just something that I see on the screen. I wonder if there's something there. And that question was answered. And Alex Kilgore and Zakai Barker, them two got the starts at linebacker, with them both being pretty much healthy, the healthiest they've been since the beginning of the year against Syracuse. And now it's going to be Brandon Booker. And I've been impressed with Booker. I've been impressed with the way he plays downhill. I've been impressed by his effort. And now he's going to be the starting middle linebacker as a sophomore. And let's see if he takes that opportunity and just completely runs with it. Because I'll tell you what, he was presented with an opportunity with Barker and Kilgore out, and he did well. He did well taking advantage of the opportunity that presented himself. He stayed ready, stayed prepared, and now he's got a chance to be the starter. So I absolutely love this for Brandon Booker. He's the dude that I think should get more playing time, and I'm stoked that he's going to get the more playing time as the starting middle linebacker, and hopefully that settles some things at that position, because if you want to be a good defense, you want your linebacker core being set, especially with them being your signal callers. But starting to get more concrete stability with this defense. 2 weeks in a row that the starting secondary looks the same. You're going to have, I think, going forward, continuity at linebacker. The defensive line looks the same. Things are starting to come together for SMU. Took a minute. Had some brutal losses, probably as a result of trying to get things shook out. But we're here, and it looks better, and I think it will look better going forward. Coming up next, the secondary could get even better. What did Rhett Lashlee say to the media that makes me believe this? We'll talk about that on the other side. Keep it here on Locked On SMU. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with SupplyHouse. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has got your blind side covered. Need parts fast for a project? SupplyHouse has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. And the part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit SupplyHouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's SupplyHouse.com. Real people, real service. We're also brought to you today by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use however you want across the app. It makes watching football just that much more exciting when you got a little bit riding in the action. You know, when you got a little bit of stake in it. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience that much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today to download the FanDuel app and get started with FanDuel. All right, welcome back to the show. Grayson Singleton. Appreciate you guys watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you guys subscribe, click that notification bell so you're notified of whenever we release new content every single day here on Locked On SMU. Okay, I think the secondary has a chance to get that much more better. That much better. There you go. That's the right way to say it. That much better in the coming weeks. And it was interesting what Rhett Lashlee had to say to the media concerning some of the coverage busts and stuff. And he goes into breaking down where we had to cover 2 and somebody didn't cover their deep half. Then we had to cover 3 and somebody didn't cover the middle third, which let a guy on the post go open. I'm not going to break down all that. I'm not going to read that part to you. But he did say something interesting about why this happened. Quote, so it was more communication bust than skill bust. We did move some people around. We got to clean that up. When we were all locked in and knew what we were doing, we played pretty well. So I think that's the biggest things. We just can't have those 2nd and 20 busts, nobody in the half, and they get a seam or when we're in cover 3. Like the last thing someone can do is run it down the middle of the field when you're in cover 3. But if you don't have a deep safety to the post, they can do that. So we can clean up our communication. I think we have a chance to get better as the year goes on with the group we have. And I know a lot of you that are listening to this played sports. I played sports. I was a basketball player up until I graduated high school. Y'all remember those days in practice when you're coming off of a game where you had communication busts? I mean, this goes for baseball, basketball, football, whatever. Communication matters. And you remember those practices after you had those communication malfunctions. What do you do in those next couple of practices following that? You remember? Because I remember. And I remember every single team I was on. School ball, AAU ball, Adidas Gauntlet, whatever. You know what we did? The over-communication that following practice was next level. I mean, it was over-communication because everybody knows from coach to player what went wrong. Hey, we didn't talk on this. He didn't hear me, or he thought he was going to do this, and we thought we were going to do this. The call didn't come in right. We've all experienced this. Those of us that play competitive sports, especially if you did at a high level, and I'm talking about higher than I did, you know what I'm talking about. And you know that you make that emphasis and you put a red eye on making sure that communication gets buttoned up. Every sport, universal. And I think when I hear Rhett Lashlee say that, it makes me think, oh, they're going to get this fixed. Especially if he said, like, this ain't because we have bad players. It's because something got lost in translation. Kind of happens. It happens. But when I hear him say, our communication is the problem with that makes me think they can get better. Because there's a lot of things you can say about this SMU secondary. At times they've put on poor effort. At times they haven't been physical. At times they haven't been able to tackle. You can say all of that. That's good and fine and valid. With the leadership they got back there with Wakobe and Moses, I don't think you can say this secondary isn't smart and isn't football instinctive. I don't think that that's on the table. So what this all boils down to is, can we button up our communication? And I tell you what, I would much rather be in a situation where I'm having to button up communication than a situation where I'm going to have to find better players. Because one of those scenarios ain't coming in the middle of the year. And it's not the communication one. So if you're going to tell me, hey, our way of getting better and fixing this in the coming weeks is we have to talk better as humans, I'm sitting okay there. And look, I will reiterate this because some of y'all jump on me in the comments for it, and I love it. But am I saying that SMU is going to be a top of the ACC pass defense team? No. They haven't done anything for me to have that opinion. They have not led me to have that opinion just yet. But can they get better? Can they get better to the point where the pressure on the offense to score every drive or every other drive is negated to some degree? Can they get better to the point where if the defensive line puts pressure on the quarterback, they can go take the ball away? Yes. Yes, they can get better because they got athletes, they got strong dudes, and they got smart dudes. And they are well coached. And they are well coached by a group of guys that wants to be aggressive and in terms of making sure that we can get the most out of this unit. Hence why they're moving dudes all over the damn place. A lot of teams would just bench guys or they'll keep them there and say, well, we suck. No, they're figuring this out. They're figuring this out. They're well coached, they're talented dudes, and they have good leadership on the field behind them. They'll figure this out. If the only problem here is we just weren't talking enough, or messages were getting lost in translation, or the call came in a little bit fuzzy to somebody, I'd rather that than say, yeah, we just kind of got to play better. Or our players sometimes just ain't good enough. I'm pretty sure you guys would all be on the same page. I'm pretty sure you guys will all be on the same page. By the way, this is also what Rhett Lashlee had to say about this when asked about the secondary play. Quote, I think we learned that coming out of the bye week on the right track. I think our three corners, Smoke, Speedy, Marcellus, are playing well. I really do. And I know that's not going to be a popular hot take to the people who just want to throw shade at stats, but they're playing well. I think moving Deuce to nickel, I think between Deuce and Kyron, that combination at nickel is a good combo for us, particularly with some of the other guys out for a while, and then that got Ahmad back to the post, Zay back at his normal spot. They're figuring that you want to talk about from instability to stability, look no further than the SMU secondary. And the depth chart for the first time this year is going to look exactly the same in terms of the starters 2 games in a row. And that's what you need. Keep stacking weeks and stacking continuity and stacking chemistry with guys at the same spot. And look, I remember, you guys remember, harken back to one of the episodes I did prior to the season starting, where Scott Simons, Pro Football Focus, had him as a top 10 defensive coordinator in the country. Scott Simons is not a dummy. All right? You don't get that kind of a praise. You don't get that kind of praise, right, by not being competent at your job. They're going to figure this out. They're going to continue to figure this out. They're going to iron out the kinks. The wrinkles are going to be gone. And this team still, in terms of the secondary, has its best football left to be played. I 100% believe that. Coming up next, we'll round out the show. Why do I think SMU needs to stomp out Stanford? Talk about that to close up shop on a Thursday. Hey, Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Plus pick awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details, and Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. With all-wheel drive coming standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence no matter the season. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move, and be moved. We're also brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly known as OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about on this show, but just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or your computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. I love how Quo, formerly known as OpenPhone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts. It's like a shared inbox, so no customer gets left hanging. And their built-in AI agent is a game changer. It can answer after-hour calls, capture leads, and keep business moving even when you and your team are off the clock. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's Quo, QUO.com/lockedoncollege. If you've got an existing number with another service, Quo will even port that over for free. That's right, no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, let's close out the show with this. You see it on the right side of the screen. Stomp them out. Now, what do I mean by stomp them out? Well, let's go back to the head coach, because Rhett Lashlee was full of some insight this year. This week. Jeez. He said, quote, in his opening statement, he's talking about Stanford here. They're better than they were a year ago. That's pretty evident on film. They're stopping the run really well on defense. Offensively, they can really keep the ball from you. They can control the ball. They're probably the best rushing attack we'll have played so far this year, just because they stay committed to it. It'll be a good challenge. He also goes on to say, we need our fans to come out there, be there, and reverse Boulevard and stay for the end of the game and all those things, end quote. Okay, first of all, before I go to the real crux of what I want to talk about here, I saw some of y'all on the message boards, and this got me. Man, this was funny. Some of y'all are very happy about a blackout at 11 a.m. And I will say this. I don't think a blackout is a bad idea. But regardless of where you are in the country, you ever seen a blackout during the day? Like, regardless, like heat aside, you ever seen a blackout during the day? So that's a little curious to me. It's a little odd to me about the blackout. But yes, fans gotta be there, gotta be there to support this crew, because a real home field advantage, I think, is what is going to make or break this game. Not necessarily is going to make or break this game, but can really enhance the SMU performance. And here's why. You have to get this Stanford team off kilter real fast. I talked about it yesterday, but I want to go into another point here. Based on what Rhett Lashlee said, and that is correct, their best asset is their rushing attack. That is their best method of attack. You know when you can't run the ball and stay committed to the run game? When you're behind. That can't happen. So, why do I say stomp them out early? You stomp them out early, you have essentially cut off their right hand. Not tied it behind their back, cut it off. And how that correlates with the fan involvement and fan engagement is because if you can get ahead, now you're forcing the other team's quarterback to really put his imprint on the game. And when is it hard to do that on the road? When the fans are rowdy. And if you can snuff out a team's running game, especially when you've made it clear to the public that you know that is their bread and butter, you stuff that out, those fans get involved with the game early. All of a sudden, you got a raucous environment. The team now can't do what it really wants to do and is best at, and it starts to spiral from there. But all that only happens is if you get on them early and eliminate that part of the game. And look, Stanford will stay committed to it. And if they're down one possession, they're not going to panic. Frank Reich is a veteran coach that has coached at a lot of levels and has seen more football than you and I will probably ever. I mean, he's forgotten more football than you and I will ever know. But in terms of him, he will stay committed to that run game. But at some point, that will have an expiration. Down 2-3 scores in the middle of the third quarter. Think you can run the ball then? No, you can't. But I'll tell you what the flip side of that looks like too. And I've seen this firsthand. When a team is just running the ball on you and chewing up clock, and it seems like the game is in their control, the coaches and the players are not the only people that can sense that. The crowd can sense that too. The crowd can sense when you're running the ball and chugging it down the field and converting third downs. And then all of a sudden, the crowd becomes my least favorite word in sports, apathetic. Because that is the worst spot for you to be in terms of being in front of your home fan base. If your crowd is just there murmuring, right? If they're just there, bad sign. So you can't let SMU find its traction in the ground game. Use the crowd to your advantage and play to the crowd. Cut off their right hand. Force them to do something. We talked about the quarterback Ben Gulbranson last show. And 60% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, get sacked a lot. Not much inspiring there. So force him to beat you. And if he does, hey, God bless him, I guess. But force him to beat you. But don't let yourself get marched backwards down the field and give up ground in the run game. Stomp them out early, take that out of the game, get your crowd involved, get them rowdy. They might be a little hot, but they'll be there. All right? So that to me is what I take away from what Rhett Lashlee said concerning how Stanford wants to operate offensively. All right, that'll do it for Locked On SMU today. I'm Grayson Singleton. Hey, make sure you're on the lookout tonight for college football kickoff on Fire TV, hosted by Locked On Big 12's Drake Toll, along with two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and former college football player Jesse Holley, and the rest of your Locked On local experts. So catch Locked On College Football Kickoff on Fire TV, exclusively. We'll talk to you tomorrow to round out the week. Take it easy, everybody.